Good evening and welcome back to the rebirth of Around the Pit, guys. It has been a while, but we are excited to be back bringing you some of the finest esports programming you can get your hands on. Before I introduce our guests and unmute their microphones so that they can start to weigh in on any topic that they damn well please, even though I'm going to do my best to wrangle them in, I'm going to go ahead and say a huge shout out to the supporters of the show, guys. The reason we've been gone for a month and a half is the computer that I built 6 years ago and was running the show on literally exploded. There was a snap, crackle, and a pop during the last episode of Around the Pit, and from that point on, everything just stopped working. I was playing Dota in ways I don't even want to describe with jury rigging. So the guys at Pro Built Systems stepped up, custom built a PC specifically for this show, and sent it over so that we could continue to run it in style. So a big shout out to Pro Built Systems. If you're thinking about getting a custom PC built, I can tell you right now, they're phenomenal. I've got pictures of the computer they built for me on the Twitter. You can check those out, and I encourage you to do so. Also, big shout out to Razer and Asus, who have provided a lot of the power for this thing and some of the parts that go into this bad boy. So thanks to everybody involved in getting the show back up and running. Now, without further ado, let's introduce the folks joining us for this masterpiece that we're about to experience. First up on your left and his right is a man from Complexity Gaming, the captain, the leader of the house. His name is Kyle. Well, it used to be Swindlezz, now it's just Swindlezz Freeman. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Life's good. I'm happy.
Awesome. I'm glad that you're happy. When you're happy, I'm happy. So excited to have you here. Second up on the list is the professor of Dota himself, the man who started small doing just a couple of stats, and now he's at every LAN that you ever want to see, as long as he's not stuck teaching some snot-nosed kids somewhere at a university that we won't mention. His name's Nahaz. Alan Bester, if you will. Glad to have you here tonight.
It's good to be here. Classes are over, but I love my teaching, man. My students are great.
Class is over, but the legend will live on rateyourprofessor.com. Our final guest is going to be none other than Gareth Battison, the man with the most UK name I've ever heard. You might know him as Durka. Dota works over in Join Dota doing all the games that Cap and Toby don't want. Durka, glad to have you here tonight. How are you?
Hey, Bateson, please.
Bateson?
Yeah. I had this feeling you'd mess it up. It's
get baited, son.
Get baited.
Get
son.
baited.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
all right. So
good.
Gareth Bateson, we're glad to have you here. That sounds a little classier like that. I dig it. So the rules are simple, guys. If you've never seen Around the Pit, I may or may not have stolen the concept largely from a show on ESPN, but it's a simple thing. There's an 8-minute timer up on the top. Every topic gets 8 to 11 minutes based on a certain timer that we all love to hate in the game of Dota. We're going to run through the topic. Anyone can talk at any time, and I award points mostly arbitrarily, but for good things that I think are entertaining, make us laugh, or just make a damn good point. And I am not against taking points away either if you say something completely ridiculous. That said, I've got a buzzer in my hand. It's from the game of Taboo, so throw some props to them. If you hear this, it means the topic is over and we're advancing to the next one. I don't care what you have to say. There's only one caveat to that, boys, and that is the soapbox. At any point during the game, each of you are allowed to call soapbox, which gives you 1 minute uninterrupted. I'll mute everybody else, and you can say anything you want about whatever topic you choose. I'd recommend it be on topic, but hey, it's your soapbox. Who am I to control it? And you can get points off of a soapbox, to be clear. You can get points off of that minute. The winner of the overall wins the Aegis. That gets you an additional 1 minute at the end of the show to talk about anything that bothers you or you want to talk about, as well as an automatic invite to come back to any show in the future. So any questions about the rules, gentlemen? All right, that's what I like to hear. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. The first topic, as voted by the folks who are watching, is pros on the couch. I want to know, do you like it? Should it be a regular thing, or should we just keep it as a special event?
Well, are we talking about a couple, or are we talking about all
I'm
of
talking
them?
about, so let's talk about both. Let's talk about the idea, when we started the summit, we saw a lot of sort of hype caster, like an OD Pixel or a Coddle or a LD, and then we saw a pro or two sort of alongside of them. And then as it progressed, we saw a game today where it was cast entirely by OG pro players with no traditional casters alongside. Is this something that you want to see a lot more of or a lot less of?
I think we can put this to bed fairly quickly. Like I think the summit is a unique event, and they do an awesome job with it. There are a lot of things at the summit that I wouldn't necessarily like to see be universal, but I think are really, really cool at that particular event. I love the one hypecaster plus 2 to 3 pros type thing. Maybe one hypecaster, 2 pros, and one sort of personality thrown in. I don't want to hear many games with all 4 pros, but I think an exception is like 4 of the 5 members of OG. That's really cool. But regardless, I do think, people like to bash casters in the scene, but it's a difficult job. And you have play-by-play casters for a reason. They're a very important part of the entertainment experience.
I think it was great, the Savage Couch with Moon Meander, and I think the grand finals, the pacing was really good, because if you look at it, you think, okay, the 4 members of OG, very analytical, there's no hype or anything to it, but as you build through that best of 5, you realize, okay, it started off kind of slow with full analysis, and then they brought in Gods, brought in LD, and they stepped it up bit by bit until it got to that final game when LD brought the hype, and I thought, yeah, the pacing was pretty strong for that grand finals, whereas like Nahaz said, originally they had that OD plus 3, Winter plus whoever else, and kind of had the nice balance beforehand.
Okay.
I want to interject, by the way. Somebody in your chat said something that I was thinking too, and that's that Fly was just absolutely the truth in that series.
Yeah, no, I think 100% agree, and I think we can all say that the way that Summit handled that final actually played out very well. The question is, had VP gone 1, 2, 3, would people have been disappointed with the lack of build-up that you guys sort of brought up? Let me ask you this. Watching future tournaments, let's say even majors, when we get to Shanghai Major, do you want to see more pros, like sort of outnumbering, like we'll say 1 play-by-play and say 2 or 3 pros, sort of the way that the Summit was doing it? Or do you think we should stick to that sort of color play-by-play, maybe 1 other person?
I think on the panel it's fine. Like TI had Waga and Mad, right, on the panel? And it's okay if you mix it up there, but I think the sort of caster pairings is a very specific dynamic where you have to have people that get along with each other very well. Whereas if you just throw, a professional player in, sure, they can give the analysis, but you don't get the back and forth.
The synergy, that's important.
Can I interject?
I mean, you can say anything you want anytime you want, Kyle.
Okay. I personally think it's like a double-edged sword.
Okay.
The Summit is the only event where I think that sort of format is viable because it's really just an organized in-house league. The prize money, like again, it's absurd that I'm saying this, but the prize pool is very low. It's very, very low for Dota. TI was like 18 million. The majors are 3. Most of the super large events are over 300K. This one I think was like a little over 100. So it's just not the stakes aren't that high. And people are just clowning around. Like I'm sure they stay up late, drinking, playing Mafia, whatever. You're still taking it serious, but it's just there's no pressure, there's no stress. At the end of the day, I think if esports really wants to break out of the bubble that is like Twitch and move into like the endemic world, the non-endemic world, and like appeal to people who aren't necessarily born and bred on gaming and esports and Twitch, that you have to do away with people that aren't taking it seriously. You can't say the word rape on a cast anymore. You just can't. I don't swear in front of my grandparents often. You shouldn't. It's not hard. It's not hard. You just guard your speech. And in addition, you shouldn't. Could you see certain groups of casters like translated? Like, could you see them on television? Like, there's no way. Yeah. And for that reason, I think, like, I agree. Like, Fly was very good because I feel like him and Kuroki were my favorites because they're very calm, neutral people. They aren't trying to be edgy or get their Twitter followers higher or make Twitch chat explode. They're just trying to present the game in an entertaining and informative way. And that's what's necessary. And some people just want to clown around. I personally thought Moon and Ice together was just a travesty. I hated that. And
Moon and Ice together maybe a bit much.
I'm sure Twitch loves it, but it's just not.
But I thought Moon aced it though. The thing is, if you look past like all the memes and shit, he made some really, really good points. I mean, he actually made a really cool point today about the fact that everybody pretty much knows this is the last big tournament of this patch. And so the pros that are on the couch aren't afraid of sharing their strats. They're not afraid of giving away their drafts. And I thought that was actually a really good point. It helped explain why some of the comments from the pros on the couch have been so interesting.
Yeah, I loved Moon's humor for the first couple of days, but you've got to say that the grand finals, when he was literally goading Twitch chat and saying, Twitch chat, failfish, Twitch chat, spam forehead.
Yeah.
That's just taking it like one level up, and you think cringe with.
I'm sorry, but I can't deal with unironically saying
Kappa.
Yeah,
Well, I think that
it really like it sends shudders through me. Like I hate it. I cannot.
Let's spin this then, and also ask you this: when you watch traditional sports coverage in I would say traditional sports, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like I never hear them reference the forums that I know must exist or the micro community that I know must exist around the NFL. But I feel like do we do that too much? Go ahead.
No. That's not that part is not the problem, right? The esports grew up online, and we come of age online, and the references to Reddit, the references to Twitch chat, those aren't going to go away. It needs to mature. It's about content.
No, you can have them. It's like you can't say it over and over, day after day after day. It just gets played out, man.
The broadcast needs to be accessible and entertaining to somebody who's not a member of those internet niche communities.
I gotcha.
You know, I have no problem continuing to pay service to the online communities that have let us be where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't get $18 million at TI5 without a lot of these really hardcore fans in some of these little communities.
I want to.
It needs to be accessible outside.
Yeah, I want to clarify. Like, I'm not saying that I want this to be like real sports. You know, esports is very different because there's a fine line between professionalism and fun that you need to maintain. Because, like, for fuck's sake, you go to these events and there's people dressed up as the characters. It's like blue paint everywhere. Everyone is so accessible because we live on the internet.
Well, I'm not saying, but hold on. To think that that's not part of the action of traditional sports isn't true. My wife dresses up in a tinsel blue hairpiece, a giant necklace, face paint, the whole 9 yards when we go to Colts games. So it's not to say that like it's the same idea. Like she cosplays for Colts essentially. So I don't want us to get off track and say like, well, the goofiness is something that doesn't exist in traditional sports. But I see what you're saying, that the memeing is something that's sort of part of our culture to a certain extent.
But then how far do you want to take it? Like, do you want to vet people when they get on the couch? Because if you look at other events, right, there's professional casters and they know what they should or shouldn't say. If you go back to one of the previous summits, Kelly got in a lot of trouble for saying gay on stream, and she said something else, but I can't quite remember what it was. But she got called out for it quite heavily. Do you want to have to vet people and say you can't say X, Y, Z? You don't have to go this far. No. Or do you just let them do their own thing and be natural? I think that's the tough line to.
I took on this topic assuming we were talking about just pros casting in general. If we're talking about pros casting at the summit, like again, that's sort of the point. It's you see people drinking in the background, beers like named after Dota spells, and you know that they're all getting drunk playing Mafia.
Which, by the way, the idea for Chaos Meteor Ale was mine.
Nice.
Just saying.
But I'm mostly just talking about when you go to like a premier event, it just has to be toned. But I mean, again, it's kind of like common sense. Valve isn't going to allow that sort of conduct. And again, it's not even like I'm the last guy who wants things to be boring and dry. It's just, for me, man, I just can't. When I'm listening to a game and it's like 4 or 5 of the grand finals, and I've heard someone say just like Twitch memes like over 50 times, I just want to shoot myself in the head.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to you have to think about what the cast is to somebody that's not immersed in the community, because let's be honest, and this is probably going to be unpopular with a lot of people, but like I want my wife to be able to watch these broadcasts and enjoy it and get something out of it and find it entertaining. Like my dad watches Dota games now. Like I want him. It's fine to have things that are like inside jokes, but if the whole it's like in a bar, if the whole conversation is inside jokes, it becomes alienating.
I get that. No, that makes sense, because I like you. We are a little bit unique in the fact that we have a family that generally sits around us on a Sunday afternoon as we try to watch Dota. And so today I watched the grand finals, and my wife and my son were there, and I think the first game she really struggled with because it was a bunch of kind of higher level thinking stuff. And then once we got to sort of the LD hype, she was more into it because she got caught up in the moment. So I think that's a great point that you make right there.
Yeah. The final point I'd like to make is just that's part of why I feel like Fly was so good, because he sort of took and this is why you need like the one guy that's got the experience, just someone to sort of control the discussion. Like your role on this show, someone to just make sure everyone stays centered, you're on topic, and like there's a flow to everything. Otherwise, you can get lost, and you have two pros that are friendly. They have just a conversation for a minute, and it's just. That voice that sort of gives a rhythm to the discussion is very necessary, and I think that's why Fly was so well received.
Give that man a point.
Oh,
You need a filter, you need a moderator, and that's exactly what Fly did.
You even had it when there was God's LD Winter. They got so into their own banter that Ted was there, P-Flax was there, just saying, "Hey guys, there's a game going on. Should we talk about the draft?" You have to have someone to take the reins and say, just chill out. We can save the banter for a bit later.
And that's why I think a lot of us were advocates of like having P-Flax at the major, for instance, even on panel, for doing things like that, lighting the mood, keeping the analysts sort of connected to the rest of us. That said, though, that's the topic, so we're going to move on to the next one. You guys have hit your max, and I'm going to keep the flow going as we're already sort of talking about the summit. I want to take us to talk about a specific team at the summit that went to the losers bracket and then just played... How do you say, like a nightmare to deal with? Virtus Pro went bananas, took a bunch of 2-0s, ran their way all the way to the final, took the first 2 games off of EG. I think they looked great. FNG was on fire with his drafts. Taking away the fact that they ended up, losing the 3, or the reverse sweep, as you sort of brought up earlier, Nahaz. Is this just Virtus Pro blooming late, and they're going to go kind of back to fighting for that premier European position? Because when we talk about the last major, there was some discussion of, are they going to get the direct invite? What's their position going to be? Do you think that this signifies they're going to Shanghai on direct invite, or do you think that this is just sort of a fluke?
100%.
I think they better. I absolutely they better. This team is legit. They've been legit for a long time. I mean, we're talking about a team that performed at TI. We're talking about a team that performed at the major. I mean, I remember. One of my most vivid memories of Frankfurt was having breakfast with FNG the day after they got knocked out with OG, and you got the impression that he thought they should not have lost, and that if they'd had that series to play 5 more times, that they'd have won at least 2 of them, if not 3. And I think this team, especially with Silent subbed in place of Illidan, Silent's hero pool is much wider. He's a much more conventional play style in terms of the carry position. I think if VP's had trouble with one thing in the past, they've had trouble switching gears in games. They've had trouble dialing back that aggression when maybe they don't have an advantage. And I think Silent is much better. I mean, the guy has the most wins in Pro Dota 2 history for a reason. All right. And I think he is going to be the anchor that's going to carry that team.
I think it's really the hero pool. Like, that's the main thing I look at. Illidan, you think historically his heroes have been things like, Medusa, Slark, Anti-Mage, Spectre. These super hard carries, right? That in the past 2-3 patches just haven't been popular and haven't worked out. Whereas Silent, his main hero, what is it? Gyrocopter. That is the hero of the past 3 patches. It's just like ideal for VP right now, and he really can actually, pick up the aggression and play into their style rather than having. I don't want to call Illidan dead weight. That's what it felt like he was.
No.
I'm going to make a couple points, so interject where you want. I don't want to soapbox, but I might monologue for a bit. First, regarding TI5, eHome Abaddoned them really hard. So
absolutely.
And that's something, just a point, like Dota is such a complicated game, and it's so difficult to understand, especially if you're only a viewer and you need to play like hundreds of pro games and study and become really immersed in the scene to understand that, once I pick up Broodmother, it's not the same game of Dota anymore. Once I have a Viper, once I have a Huskar, like even a Dazzle, just all of these things change what you have to do in the game. VP was a better team than eHome. VP was, I think, one of the best 3 teams at TI5. But they got Abaddoned, so they lost 2-0. And you'll remember them forever as finishing 6th. Just like we finished 12th. Like, you win, you lose. I think Kuro said it. Like, Kuro's very, I don't want to call him a pessimist, but he's just like, he's just a realist. He's like, it's just Dota, man. Like, you win some, you lose some. He's a really cool guy. Second, regarding VP specifically, if you look at like even Illidan's farewell post, it was very, not passive, but, he was, you can see that he's not aggressive, okay? And VP is in. They're in. Silent lost them 2 games today. Well, sorry, lost them game 3.
Nah, I
Still
lost.
them. He died to tier 4s at like 17 minutes in one game. But the thing is,
That's not on him. The Drow game is on him.
The Drow game is 100% on him. Just super out of position. But that's the thing. He errs on the side of aggression. He pushes it to 12. Illidan was at like a 6. And the final point I want to make is that G is one of the 3 best players in Dota 2. And you don't want a carry player that wants to be the one. You want a player that complements G. Because G is really, really, really good.
I mean, he is one of the 3. When you talk about a do-shit player, like G is easily, I don't know about the 3 best, but he is like easily one of the 3 biggest do-shit players, if not number 1.
He's so good on so many varied heroes, like his SF, and he's so consistent. He's just like incredibly good. Like you'll even see players like, Moon and Sumail, super talented, but when they have off games, like they're off. I've never seen G feed. And a lot of that is how people play.
I've seen G feed.
I haven't seen G feed at a major LAN event.
No, not recently. No, he's been much more consistent recently. It's been 2 patches. He used to be one of the. That's the thing about G is that his mean hasn't changed, but his variance is like half what it used to be. Like he used to be an incredibly high vol. He used to be like an SEA player in terms of his volatility game to game, and now he's like one of the more steady performers mid, especially for the risks that he takes and the style that his team plays. I still, though, I think I go back to, I brought it up and Durka mentioned it. I still think flexibility is such a key, because if you look at teams right now, so much of team success is the ability to make adjustments. I really do believe that a huge reason why EG is so good is because they're able, you take the adjustments that other teams make over the course of days or weeks, and they're able to do it in hours between series. And I think having Silent on your team gives you the ability to adjust your strats faster, even in game. And that's just something that VP has been utterly unable to do. How many times do you see VP when they win their games, their strat works, they get ahead, and they never let go? How many times have you seen them come back in a game? It's not that frequent.
Okay. Durka, do you have anything? Or you just, it's like 4 a.m. for you, right? So it looks like he's just dying.
No, I agree with these guys. I mean, I still think that
I'm gonna give both of them a point because you agree with them.
Damn it! That's not how it's meant to work. Can I get a point for agreeing with them? Just backing them up, yeah, bro.
So VP though, I mean, this is a team that there's a patch, and I think this is the struggle, is the patch is coming out in a very short period of time. This is the last major event before the patch, unless something crazy happens. Does VP strike you as a team that will be able to master the next patch and continue to perform the way that they were today, or do you think it's going to take them some time to sort of ramp up from here?
I think it's going to take everybody some time to ramp up.
Except Empire.
The thing is, man,
you can never know.
Right now in Dota, man, anybody can beat anybody. You look at a series like a BO5 just went 3-2. Sure. Then you have VP, they lose 2-1 to Vici, they 2-0 them later in the tournament. It's team, they're like this, man. Everyone is so close together that just like, because you're not judging teams on who's better, you're judging teams on who's better in a BO3 or sometimes like, a BO2 or a BO1. Star Ladder is a group stage, 6 teams, BO1, 3 are eliminated from groups. How do you know who's the best team? Somebody finishes 2-4, another guy finishes 3-3. The difference between winning 2 of those games could have been one mistake, one team fight. And there's so many little nuances in drafts, in rune spawns, in early rotations. How so many, especially in this patch, in this meta, you'll see like EG in that last game, they killed Drow. VP takes the fight anyway. They kill 3. They get 4 total, 4 for 0. They get a tower. They get map control. Suddenly the game's turned. And if that one mistake doesn't happen, I think VP 3-0s the tournament. And we're not talking about, wow, like EG's impressive. Will VP still be good in the next season? We're going to say, holy shit, VP is so good. Are they the best team in the world?
Right.
And it's all on one play. You don't even have a game 4 or 5 to discuss without that. So it's really hard to say who's going to be good, because I feel like, I think we've had 3 or 4 lands in a row with a different winner. And a lot of the same teams are at these events. I think two points to build on that. And number one is that
you can really see what Swindle's saying in the stats, that if you look at Nox's ELO ratings, I mean they go like this, right? We going into the Summit 4 was as tightly clustered as I've seen the top 15 teams in terms of power rankings since we've been tracking.
Right.
Since we've been tracking that data, it really is incredible the parity that we've got right now. I mean, the line between tier 1 and tier 2 teams is very, very thin, and it's defined much more by consistency, in my opinion. The other thing is, you got to keep in mind, this next patch is just going to be way different. 6.85 was on paper so similar to 6.84, and we actually did see a lot of differences in strats and in teams, but that was mostly because 6.84 was such a mature meta. Teams rotations, their drafts were so highly optimized, and you see that same thing going on. I believe Swindle referred to it earlier that this meta is also mature as well, but the 6.86 meta is just going to be such a departure from 6.85 that there's just going to be utter chaos for a couple weeks.
Do you think we're going to see the deviation away from plus-minus armor strats? Because I swear, at the end of every patch, people bring out these plus-minus armor strats, right?
No,
There's
only
Metro
it's not the
Spread,
end,
Drow
it's not
Ranger,
the end
Dazzle.
of every patch. It's throughout every patch. It's Roche.
No, but
It's Roche.
we see like the full-on. We're going to go all
First
plus-minus armor.
First
like,
Roche,
towards the end of a patch.
75% win rate. That's all you need to know about minus armor.
All right, I'm gonna buzz, and here's what I'm gonna buzz for, because we're moving on to the next topic without us moving there, which is fine. We're gonna talk about the patch and what to expect, or what we're dealing with in this current patch, and we're gonna get there. But I just want to kind of wrap up because we're done with Virtus Pro at this point. I think we got a good cover there. Let's go to the next one. And I want to do one more thing from the summit real quick. It's not gonna go a full 8 minutes probably, but I just want your guys' opinions on who were the big winners and who were the big losers, if there were any, when you talk about the summit in general as an overall tournament. Were the big winners the meme lords out there who absolutely love watching memed interviews? Were the big winners EG because they took home the prize? Were the big losers BTS because the compendium never actually made it into the store? Like, when you watch the tournament,
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
who did you walk away saying yes?
And that's not a first, by the way. Like, I don't know why Valve hates LD, but anyway. Sorry, Swindle, you were going to say something, brother. Jump in.
Okay, I wanted to make this quick point, just that good strategies are always going to be good strategies, okay? So Drow strats, all-in Chen lineups, IO strats, minus armor strats, like, the game might evolve, the meta might change, but at the end of the day, like, a good strategy will be good. And there's certain hero combinations, like, they can nerf Huskar into the ground. If you get, like, you know, let's say they release Oracle, you get Oracle, Huskar, Dazzle, or whatever, it's still going to be good, you know? There's still weird strategies that are working in this meta that shouldn't, but they do, because it's not about, like, Storm can still be a really good pick. Timbersaw can be a really good pick. Phoenix can be a really good pick, like we were talking about in the pre-show. It's all about the situation. But to add, so putting that to bed, to answer your question, I actually think DC was the biggest winner at this event, because I feel like they didn't win, but they showed that they could play. You know, they lost close games. They took a game off of eHome and EG. And from my perspective, like, looking at them going into this event, I thought they were just a dead fish. And they really looked very competitive and very strong, definitely better than they were with their previous roster. And we haven't even started the new season yet. This is kind of like a gimme land. It's the dying patch, way better teams, new roster. They weren't even winning in NA Dota before they went there. And they looked really good. So I think they'll have a lot of confidence going to this new season. And obviously, VP as well, for the same reason. New roster, performed very well, and it should give them a lot of confidence. Because once again, this land, 113K. It's not a huge deal. It's the experience, it's the fun, it's the competition. And I think both of those teams will be very happy moving forwards.
Yeah, that 0% series, honestly, against EG, that had me on the edge of my seat. And I've got, like, EG must have had the fear put into them. Absolute fear put into them, because the fact that DC come out of nowhere, like, for me in Europe, it's a relatively quiet team, right? You know it exists, you know it's there, you know they're playing in the NA scene, but to go up against EG, the team that you think, right, they're going to be somewhat favorites, you know, top 3 here at the summit, to take them to 3 games as close as it was and nearly take game 3, you know, it was ridiculously good. Right. 1437 must have done a great job, an absolutely amazing job, just pulling that team together, honestly.
I would add to that. I guess the only thing I'd add to that is I think Fly and FNG sort of for different reasons, but I've thought that the two of them have been two of the best drafters in the game now for quite some time. FNG in particular, I don't think gets enough credit. And I think between hearing Fly on the couch, hearing some of his rationales, and just watching some of the drafts by FNG, having Silent at his disposal with that more flexible hero pool, I think a lot of people are going to take notice of their drafting, and they're going to be in the discussion as two of the top captains in the game.
I agree with that.
Another thing regarding the series is one thing to note is DC won the first game against EG and the first game against eHome, and I think that's so I'm hyping them, but at the same time, like that is the mark of I don't want to say a fluke, but the great teams lose the first game, sometimes lose the second game, and then win the series. So that's why I don't want to have us read too much into it. As an example, Liquid also won the first game against EG in the upper bracket. So you take Liquid and DC, they're sort of similar in that they're not getting invited to the major.
You're gonna trigger me on this line because I've always maintained, and this is from other sports as well. Great teams win. Period. I don't care if it's game one. I don't care if it's game 5.
Great teams win the series, not just the first game. The first game is the easiest. The first game is when both teams are at an equal footing. After the first game, the better team is going to win more often. I think if you want to go stats it up.
I don't know that that's supported by the data other than, EG obviously is going to skew the statistics by themselves.
Hardcore, yeah.
But that's a good question, actually. I should have numbers on that. I don't off the top of my head.
All right, we'll give you 2 points because you stumped Nahaz on a stat, and that's blows my damn mind.
This is with preparation. You got tweeted at early today as well. What's the percentage of teams coming back from a 2-0 deficit in a best of 5? Leaf Eater tweeted at you and Knoxville, and neither of you answered him.
There just aren't that many best of 5s. The data is very small, so I think EG are
Is that your excuse?
EG are 3-1 in game 5s, and they've only played 4 best of 5 series since the Summit 2, and that was the only one they lost. They've won the next 3 game 5s.
All right, that is it for that topic. We're going to move on. I think we got some good winners and losers there, mostly just winners. It seemed like it was a very successful tournament in terms of play, and sort of the pros who were there having a great time before the patch changed. Losers in the sense of I think that compendium really would have loved to have seen it come out, if only to reward the players who were there, right? Because it's a fun tournament. It's very fan-oriented, and I think that it's nice to see the prize pool get a little bit bigger. As I said, we'll move past it. Here's a topic that I do want to talk about. I want to make sure that we have time to get to it. That topic is drops before locks. So we saw Black, My Nuts, Illidan. We can probably talk about a whole skew of players who were dropped very close to the deadline. And the question is this: is that just a risk of doing business, or should there be some sort of protection? And if so, how do we do that?
I don't know how you can handle it. There are a lot of people that want there to be 2 deadlines with a drop deadline and then a lock deadline. I just don't think you can do that. I think that if you're going to stick with this roster locking regime, that's going to happen. And guys, let's not forget, I've made this point a couple of times on Twitter already, that the next round, the stakes are that much higher, because then after Shanghai, we get rosters locked for almost a full 6 months for both the Spring Major and TI.
Mm-hmm. Every time this kind of shit happens, there's always the topic of conversation that comes up is that overruling body, right? The players' union, some kind of autonomous body that takes control of contracts, takes control of players' rights. We never... it's never going to happen. It can't exist. So Valve have tried to sort of take this into their own hands and say, okay, well, it's up to you teams. You can sort shit out yourself. But look at Full CNL.
Valve's version of trying to take that into their own hands is
giving it away to other people.
Is letting PPD and Eternal Envy yell at each other, and there you go. I mean,
but you look at Full CNL as like a prime example, right? One of the best European teams out there. They're up and they're rising. They're the rising stars with their team that they had. But where are they now? There were some internal issues that I know of where they didn't. Some players didn't want to play with each other anymore. They lost EGM to Alliance, and now you look at it, and who's left? There's Pycat, Saxa, Bambo. There's 3 players left on that team, which was amazing. They were top of the tier 2 Dota in Europe.
To be fair, that team's been dead for 2 weeks. They qualified to game show, and that was the only reason they were staying together. So I do agree with you, but they've been dead for a while. The team was always going to disband.
I mean, they were looking for 2 new players because of EGM plus Nico are both leaving, but the 3 core players have no one left because of these roster changes. Like they couldn't contact Black to contact Era because they've got new teams.
So I got a question for Swindle, by the way. It seems to me, do you have a problem as a team or as a captain if you get a reputation for doing this? Because this is now the second time in a row, basically, that Alliance has dropped a player right before, and a player who, by the way, has played really well for them.
Honestly, no. At the end of the day, everyone is selfish and will act in their own self-interest.
Yeah, you can't deny that.
If your team is here in your eyes and you get an offer from a team that's here, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you see it like, that you might be cut, but because of the roster lock, all right, I have 3 months to prove myself. And if not, you try again. But at the end of the day, I've learned there is no such thing as loyalty. Victory is the only way to ensure that the people that are on your team will stay on your team, with the exception of those who share your last name. You can count on those people. Most of the time.
I kind of thought that was going to be the answer, but I wanted to hear it from you.
The point I wanted to make regarding the roster lock, so it's like, I just think it's just not enough time. I had a conversation with the guy who's now managing the Black Extinct team when they had 4 players. And to quote him exactly, he says, "We have a day to discuss it. We're fine. I mean, we literally got a group of 4 together in like 3 hours."
What do you mean by what do you mean by it's not enough time?
Okay, when I knew that Tal and Moon were leaving last season, I had 8 days to put a team together. Black and Extinct had what, 2? You can't. The problem is that it's a huge advantage to make it to these Valve events. Okay.
Yes.
Because that's where the wheeling and dealing happens. Like, do you know how much planning and plotting goes down at the after party at the hotel? Like, that's where
absolutely,
the great teams are made. The new secret people, they knew who was going to be playing on that
Of
team.
course.
That there were discussions made at the event. If you're not at the event, you have to wait for everyone to get home. And what did you have, like 11 days? Like, I lucked out, and I brought my old band back together. Otherwise, I'd be in some deep shit.
That's part of, by the way, why I think Valve should follow the practice that is followed in a lot of other industries, and have at least partially subsidized players traveling to the event that have appeared in previous Valve events.
That would be nice.
That's an interesting idea.
Although it's very depressing to be at an event that you're not playing in. It's better than being eliminated.
I understand, but at the same time, I think there's a very real element of networking, and this is partly why baseball formed the winter meetings, for example. This is partly why a lot of other industries have structured centralized meetings, because they've recognized that not being at a particular event through happenstance can be a big disadvantage.
I agree. I feel like there should I'm in favor of the 2 lock. See, it's really hard because the thing is, I don't know if everyone understands this, but the roster locks from Valve's perspective has nothing to do with competitive integrity or really anything other than protecting the players. That's what Valve cares about. And it has nothing else to do than, okay, you have your team, awesome. You can't cut anyone without removing your ability to get an invite, so that those 5 players are all protected from one another, so that you don't have 4 people suddenly there's this other team of 5, let's say team number 7 and team number 5. Team number 5 wants carry player from team number 7, so they ditch the carry player and they get that. So then you break up 2 teams, and this guy is screwed now because he can't join another team. And that's what they're trying to prevent, so that you have to play with these people. My issue is like it's just not enough time, really, and it's so painful to be in a team that you're not happy with, and in this system you have no choice. Long gone are the days where people are just going to school, they're going to work, and they're just playing Dota when they get back. People are doing this full time as professionals. I'd say NA Dota gets a lot of flack for being a poor region. I think there's at least 6 teams that are doing this full time, nothing else going on. 2 Peruvian teams are in team houses, 1 Brazilian team is in a team house. We're in a team house. DC's obviously trying hard, Archon's trying hard, the new C9, XC9's trying hard. But when you start losing, it's painful, and all you can do is practice. It's like you're not going to not practice, but you're not going to win. You don't like your team, and you're stuck, and you can't do a damn thing about it. And that is just it's great for the tier 1 teams and the people on tier 1 teams, but until you make it
Yeah,
there, it's a
that
really
was my big
process.
concern with this whole regime was that, and I talked to Bruno about this from the beginning, that I thought that if you're not very careful about how you handle the roster locking, that it becomes a tax on tier 2 and tier 3 teams.
Yeah, and then you tag on this whole subsystem, right? Where you've got 2 subs, but they're meaningless.
Yeah.
In
No,
most
they're not.
respects,
No, they're not. They're not meaningless at all. That's the problem. Is that who else besides EG is going to be able to have a player like the caliber of Zai as a sub?
Oh, that's what I mean. For the majority of teams, they're meaningless. I should have clarified there. Because you look at Na'Vi, their subs. Okay, they've got like LeBron and people like that. But these players, you can't interchange them from for the actual players on their roster. It's like changing a tier 1 player for a tier 3 player.
The other thing is you can't use a sub. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware of how it works. The substitute may only be used in an event that a main player is either unable to secure a visa or for health reasons is unable to attend the event.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Really. That is the only time that the sub will be used.
Well,
Unless I believe you replace the active player with the sub, which can only be done if I believe once a season, maybe twice.
I've actually heard conflicting things about this, but
I did pretty extensive research. I got a guy with chronic health issues. We cannot, if we go to TI the major, and we, let's say, go losers bracket final, and then let's say game 3 of the finals, Chelsea's in pain, he can't play. I don't know what we do. We can't use the sub. We cannot use.
Do you have that? Do you have that from Bruno?
I have that from Valve. I don't know exactly where that information came from, as by talking with my manager and multiple employees, and that's the call. Maybe I'm just full of shit.
Well,
I sincerely doubt that. The problem is there are a lot of contingencies and happenstances that are not written into the rules. Like it wasn't. I had a long conversation with Bruno Frankfurt about the Boreal situation in the NA qualifiers, and there were pretty clearly a lot of people had misinformation pretty much all around, and it was not Valve's fault. It wasn't really their fault. It was no side really understood what the other was trying to say. And I
would say that's definitely Valve's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. The Bucks got to stop somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
I agree. It's got to be.
I absolutely love Valve. They're like one of my the greatest companies. But what makes them great is also what makes them intolerable. There's try and work with Steam support. Okay.
Fuck that. Honestly.
There's no person. There's no hierarchy. It's not like, okay, these people report to this person. It's just a clusterfuck.
It's a free for all.
And nobody really knows who's making the call. So it leads to some great interactions, but at the same time, you don't know. But I don't really understand the purpose of the sub, because like I said, you cannot. It's not like football. You sub someone out, sub somebody in.
That just doesn't
replacing the player.
Doesn't sound right to me.
We are out of time. You know what? I'm going to trust that you've done the research as the captain of the team, because I know that you have a player who has chronic health issues.
I'm not disbelieving what you're saying.
We would have put a lot more work into finding a real sub if we could have used him as such, but that was not what we learned.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next topic. Keep in mind, guys, if you want to talk about something, you're always welcome to call for your soapbox. If somebody, is way behind in points and desperately wants to try to get caught up, they can call a soapbox on a topic and try to get some sort of monologue going to secure those points. Just throwing that out there. But what we're going to do is we kind of get to the back end of the show is I want to talk about the patch, because when I tweeted out and put some Reddit stuff up and said, what do you want to hear us talk about? Everyone said patch. And here's the thing. We don't have patch notes, right? We don't know when the patch is coming. So what I do want to know from you guys, as analysts, as players, as casters, what did you love most in your look back at 6.85? And then after we talk about 6.85, we'll talk about what are you hoping for in 6.86. So starting out with 6.85, what did you guys love? What did you guys hate from that patch?
I mean, my answer is very boring, and it's that 6.85 was not too big a departure from 6. But 6.85 pretty much fixed the most glaring errors with 6.84, which were mostly Glimmer Cape and a couple of heroes, and introduced a couple of problems in the face of Doom. Teams figured out that Husker is utterly broken. Teams figure out that Meepo is the new Brood. But otherwise, I think this is the most balanced meta that we've ever had.
Okay. Gentlemen, how do you feel?
Oh, sorry. Durka, what do you think?
You can go first.
No. You go first.
I fucking love Husker. Like, that is one of my most fun. Oh God, you hate me now.
What the? Wait,
I love Husker.
What did you just say?
Me. I love Husker. Do you hate me now? Are you done?
I mean, your score changed, but that's all right.
Did it go up or down?
Where's the
please tell me
negative
it went up.
point? Where's the negative point button?
Just give me 10 points. I love Husker.
Shit.
You got 0 currently. So anyway, I'm kidding.
So
I'm
I
kidding.
think
I'll go back.
thank you for that, Durka. I'm really glad you used your opportunity to catch up.
I love
All
Husker.
the way down. All the way.
The thing that was nice about 6.85 was specifically that teams. You look at the great teams; they capitalized on timings. Okay, it was so good to finally watch teams synergize and Aegis with completed items and running high ground as 5, saying just come at me. Like they hit the tower and they try to win the game. And that's what Dota is all about. Dota is not split pushing and farming and hiding in the trees and the awful mini game of maximizing your efficiency on the map.
Or trying to defeat a sniper, being defeated by a sniper that's saying high ground is demolishing you while you're trying to push up tier 3.
We talked about this before. To win in 6.84 and 6.85, you have to be adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my favorite part about these two metas is that it's not enough. It's not enough to have your one pocket strat that you pull out. It's not enough to run at people all day long. You have to be able to play in more than one way because there are so many good teams right now, and good teams are going to. There's enough viable heroes. There are enough highly optimized strats. Good teams are going to take you out of your comfort zone.
I want to take the mic for a second because I want to ask you a question. I want everybody to say yes or no if you agree with Nahaz. Would you say that the last 2 patches, especially, the major focus was adaptability for teams to win? They had to be adaptable.
I think, 100% for 6.85, 6.84. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Like, if you mean by adapt the current meta and make sure that's what you know how to play, then sure. But I played that patch for like 6 months, hated every second of it, and it just.
You hated 6.84.
Wait, sorry. 6.83 was Sniper Troll. 6.84 was TI, right?
6.83 was
garbage. Hell.
Sorry. I'm high. Okay.
6.83, 60-minute games kill me now.
Oh, yeah.
Forget Sniper
End the
Troll.
game.
Oh,
The fact that pubs were like having your balls roasted
That's
over.
why it doesn't matter how bad Huskar gets or whatever. At least you like feel like you can do something. But my lord, man, that patch. I don't want to talk
What's
about
wrong with Husker?
All right.
What's wrong with Husker?
You can't beat it. It's a hero that changes the game. You just lose. If you get last picked Huskard and you don't have a hero to deal with it, you lose.
Wait a minute.
That's your issue as a drafter. That's your issue as a drafter then. The same thing can be said for Brood.
That's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But
Same thing that people said about Brood forever, and all of a sudden Brood's beatable.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Very
Brood, by the way, is better 6.85 as a first phase pick.
Really?
By the way,
For Russian teams, right? Or for all teams?
So let me ask
fine.
you,
It's Russian teams.
to keep us on track, though, to keep us on track, if these last 2 patches were about adaptability to a certain extent, as you've said, Huskar can change games. You have to adapt to that in the drafting. Let me ask you this. We have players when you talk about the pro scene. We have mechanic masters, right? People who are incredibly good at the skill-based game, can play their lanes incredibly well in their roles. And then we have the strategists, the masters who are the drafters, the captains, the guys who come up with the strategy. Do you think patches like this that put so much emphasis on adaptability are putting too much into the hands of finding a great strategist for your team? Because 5 mechanical players without a great drafter, I don't think could win. Do you agree, or do you think otherwise?
I think is that even a question?
It's a question.
There's no doubt.
That's not even a question. You
You can have 5 AKMMR players, and if they don't have an idea how to draft or actually synergize together, there's no way they win against someone like PPD.
And is that okay to have the necessity to have a master
is it
strategist on your team?
okay? It's
That's
fucking
the
awesome.
reason we play.
I'm just asking.
That's
It's
the
like
reason we
the
play.
reason I love this game and spend all of my spare time analyzing it. I mean, yeah.
answer your question about adaptability, I think it's see, for me, that's part of what why I say I like G so much as a player is I feel like it's not so much how many heroes can you play, it's how many styles of hero.
And how well can you adapt to the game state?
Exactly.
Like, he has come so far in that regard. Like he was absolutely awful in that respect as recently as 8 months ago.
That also is why EG went through so many growing pains, because Arteezy and Sumail, incredible players, but they had to learn. Like, that's why I love that, EG's picking Timbersaw, because Timbersaw play style it's a storm. Like, you play it like Storm in the same sense.
Yeah.
And they needed to find those sorts of heroes. They needed to see what can we have Arteezy play that complements Sumail and vice versa. Whereas previously they both sort of did the same thing in the game, and they had to learn how to play with one another. And to your point about adaptability, that's what Dota really is. It's mastering different styles and being really, really talented at many things. As an offlaner, you're an offlaner, but how you play Brood, Spirit Breaker, Furion, Earthshaker, Slardar totally differs from game to game. And then it's not only that, it's are you ahead, are you behind, are you even? There are some players that they play a great quap, but you throw them off lane quap in a dual lane and it's competitive, and at 10 minutes they have 30 CS instead of 60.
Why is Universe the best player in the game?
Because he can do whatever the hell he wants.
It's because he will make big plays, whatever the hero, whatever the game state, whatever the situation, he will give you the best chance you can have to win the game. Period. Now, but let's make sure that we get to 686, because I think that I know we don't want to spend too much time because we'll do a separate patch analysis show, but I think there are some interesting points.
All right, so actually I'm going to restart the timer for 6.86 because I think we ended up with a lot more discussion about 6.85 than I thought we would, but I think that you guys made some really great points about that. I loved it. So let's jump to the next one. This is 6.86. I want to know what you are looking forward to, or what you hope is going to change, like what needs to sort of be the next evolution of Dota as we move towards the Shanghai Major.
I honestly want to see heroes like Shannon and Chandras come back. I want the jungle to be utilized by heroes instead of being utilized by supports to stack for carries.
3 points.
Honestly, that's one of the biggest things for me the past what, 3 patches, 4 patches? So, well, 3 patches definitely, right?
Yep.
Maybe 3 patches ago we had like Enigma and
Junglers have just sort of gone in a steady decline, and part of it actually ironically is if you look back over the summer and even going into TI, what was happening is that a lot of the tier 1 teams were picking Radiant and were just abusing the Radiant jungle and just sort of out farming. Period, and they would win whatever happened.
Well, far west large camp was the biggest abuse
right.
the past 2 patches. It was like EG especially.
So what's happened, ironically, is that a lot of teams have gotten so good at countering the Radiant jungle, and you see Dire routinely now TP to their bot tier 1 to go raid the Radiant jungle. The ward positions in the Radiant pull camp. The Radiant pull camp is very, very easy to ward and relatively hard to de-ward now compared to Dire. Dire, there's a reason what I'm building up to. Dire has an overall 56% win rate over since November 1st. And teams have just gotten very, very good at countering Radiant. And as that's happened, the Radiant jungle, which was tended to be a little bit more friendly for jungles, has really fallen off. I think that some map changes need to occur on that Radiant side.
2 quick things. One, to address that point you just made, both Radiant, if you're talking about the pole camp, the small creep pole camp, both camps, regardless of side, can be dewarded by 2 sentries.
Although
equally efficiently.
Yes, but there are way more games when it takes, and I agree that this is due to mistakes, but there are way more games where it takes 3 to deward the Radiant than the Dire.
I would give you that. I think that's mostly just lack of preparation. But
Agreed.
I do agree there's a lot of weird hiding places that drive you insane on that Radiant camp.
Yep.
And to talk about this patch and what I hope changes, you guys sort of touched on the death of junglers, but the real reason we don't see them is because the meta has become very 3 and 2 focused. We've had previous iterations of the game where you have a 1-4. If you look at the top teams, they draft 2 hardcores and 3 heroes that support them. OG, they won the major because No-Tail and Miracle got farmed, and they had 3 heroes to back them up, either with control, healing, CC, whatever. You can't afford to have a really greedy 4 anymore. You can't run a jungler. You can't run something that's going to stay even with your mid player at 10 minutes.
No, that's
not
actually
how you operate the game.
That's actually right. People, for whatever reason, there's a big misconception out there about crit. People actually, I've actually heard a couple people compare crit to EGM, which could not be more wrong. Crit actually only takes 13% of the total farm. Fly takes 10. Like he's actually a fairly hard support. It's just because he makes these plays and everybody on the team gets farmed that people think that crit is actually a really greedy support. He's really not.
Yeah, and if you look at like heroes, when let's say Moon's playing Darkseer, that hero traditionally Darkseer takes a lot more space, but it's not. He gets more farm, but that's not because he's taking space from your cores. He's actually creating it by just constantly shoving lanes and creating space for his teammates. You have so much more focus on heroes that can do ancient stacks, heroes that can clear jungle stacks early on. If you look at a lot of the top tier drafts, they'll have one hero that can clear ancient stacks at 10 minutes plus, and one hero that can take hard camp stacks at say 6 minutes. So SF is the best hero in the game right now. You can build around SF very easily. If you look at VP, they ran the very similar lineups. They late pick their 1, they build around the SF. Their 3, their 4, and their 5 are pretty much indistinguishable. Obviously, there's going to be a hard support. The Visage will take farm. Depends on the game, etc. But you have 2 cores and 3 supports.
Now, one is that the 6.85, for what it's worth, the 6.85 meta is less stack focused than 6.4. Now, that's partially because some of the heroes and the items that enabled gross stack farming got nerfed, except for Shadow Fiend. The other thing is, that's another reason, by the way, that we've seen junglers die, is that teams have realized that the farm that they used to have with an Enigma in the jungle early on is so much more efficient if you just stack those camps and let SF eat them early on.
So is that something, so to be clear, is that something you're hoping changes in 6.6? You want to see kind of a return to a 4 that seeks farm instead of a 4?
No.
I want to see, I want to see that, I want to see that golden era of the 4 position come back, because I felt like the game was better when we had a little bit more variety at the 4. Yeah. I think one of the huge improvements, probably the biggest single improvement in the 6.85 meta over 6.84 was the opening up of the offlane meta. The offlane meta is so much more dynamic and interesting right now. It used to be all about like Clock and Earthshaker just because they could keep the lanes back. Now you actually see teams running their carry on the off lane in a dual lane, which I think is awesome. I want to see that richness come back to the 4 position that's come back to the 3.
I'd love to see. Wait, sorry, Durka, your mic just went weird, but go.
Why is he so quiet?
I can't hear him at all. Do you have the auto adjust mic thing back on?
No.
Maybe it's like a correlation between number of points and volume of the mic.
Oh.
Can you remove points for that?
There you go. You're back.
God damn it.
Oh, there you go.
I want to see a limit to the number of stacks you can make. Like right now, what you get like 6, 7 stacks?
That's pretty hard though. How often do you see that in a pro game? Like, isn't that already kind of built in? The stacking window becomes incredibly tight after 3 or 4.
No. Can I make a point real quick on the what you
Don't
had just
fucking
said?
ask.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm so
I love you, dude. I'm just kidding. Go.
Like, I feel like you're like some sort of teacher, and I have to ask permission. Like, I kind of
raise your hand.
Yeah. It's the hair. I feel like, and I'd love to see stats on this, but this is probably one of the first metas where you actually have more versatility with your cores than you do with your supports. And we talk about this, so we've been scrimming a bunch, we just new team, we've been playing a bunch, and I want to try heroes, I want to pick Lion, but why would I pick Lion when there's Dazzle, Wyvern, Undying, and Tusk?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would I pick it? I can't. And then you have like the second tier of like AA, Visage, Disruptor, and Rasta. Those heroes, like, if you look at them, that's your second tier. Why would you take one of those heroes over Dazzle, Tusk, Undying, or Wyvern, or Io, or Bane? Those are your 6 heroes. You will see them they're either banned or picked in, like, I don't know. I'd say at least 5 or 6 are banned or picked in every game. I'd love to see stats on this, but cores are where you have your versatility.
Yep. No, that's statistically true. The bans have been concentrated on supports. Picks have been concentrated on supports lately. That's absolutely right.
Yep.
The only team that kind of breaks the mold in that for me is Liquid. They pick some fucked up shit for their supports, like Nick support. They run around
They
with all
pick
sorts
Tusk
of
like
crazy-
every game. They
Elder
pick
Titan,
Tusk
what
every
phase?
game.
like since they were created though, like they've been picking like they picked Nick's support 2 weeks ago. They do some weird shit. Like they aren't.
How have they been finishing in these tournaments?
Not so well.
Well,
They've
I
been
mean,
playing all right. I mean, they won the defense.
yeah, they won defense, did they?
Okay, I do
But
agree with you.
that's when they were drafting super like normal up against.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Wait,
When they knocked off this Elder Titan 5th pick shit, they won.
We had 2 games in the defense grand finals where the drafts were identical, apart from 2. Like the first, the
Right.
5 bans from each team were identical. The first 3 picks from each team were identical. It was down to the last 2 picks from each team where there were 2 differences between them. It was crazy.
Can I interject real quick? So Liquid supports in the loser finals and the winner finals. AA Wyvern, Omni Knight Wyvern, Tusk Silencer, Tusk IO, Bane Undying. They won the LAN.
Sure.
Super standard.
So the support meta is too static.
I mean, do I get points for the fact that this is basically the same topic that I opened? Like the support meta, especially at the 4 position, it's in the same state right now that the offlane meta was at the end of 6.84. It's incredibly static. You're not seeing variety in heroes, and not only are you not seeing variety in heroes, you're not seeing variety even in the way that those particular heroes are played.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. I think we
like
can all agree.
it's the same heroes, and they're being played in exactly the same way every game.
Makes sense.
That's the thing. Like, you know exactly what the Bane is gonna do. Like
Right.
They first to it. You know, they take Bane Shadow Fiend. You know exactly what they're gonna do, and there's really not like the perfect answer. You can't just be like, okay, we know what they're gonna do. Like, you first pick up Brood, you can formulate a plan. It's kind of, when you see a Bane SF, you kind of just have to put the best 2 heroes you can middle. You know, it'll be like Viper Dazzle or something. But
It's all about trade. Like the initial phase of the draft now is super algorithmic, right? It's always about what do we give, what do we trade off? What do we trade off for first pick, second pick? Okay, we give them SF, we take Tusk plus Wyvern, Tusk Dazzle, whatever like that. It's the same opening hands and picks. Depending on what team you're against, you know, Liquids and OG, you kind of ban Wisp first phase, but other teams, it's like, well, we ban Dazzle Tusk here, SF Tusk. There's no variance.
All right, so I'm going to bring the buzzer there as we're at the back end of what we have time for. I do, however, want to put something in. This is a reboot of the series, you know, because it's been a time off. So I've taken liberties to add a few things when I feel like it and take a few out. And what I think would be fun is we get our soapboxes and we get our award at the end. But before we give out the final points, I would like to give everybody a chance to say their last piece. So roll around here. I'm just going to work my way across the overlay here. So we'll start with Swindlezz, go to Nahaz, and then to Durka, who needs prayers, and give him your energy if you can. And it's going to be 30 seconds. And I want you to take 30 seconds just to sort of state your case, reiterate maybe something that you thought was valuable throughout your discussion here today, and sort of maybe try to rack up a few extra points to secure the Aegis for yourself. And if you want to do shout-outs or call-outs or any of that stuff during this period of time, please feel free to do so. So 30 seconds on the clock, and we're going to start out with my man, Swindlezz.
Geez, I don't really know what to talk about. I feel like this is a really great point for Dota. I think that this is sort of the precipice at which we're here. You know, this might be as good as it gets, and we've got about a year to 2 years of it. I think this is a great point for the game. I think the competitive scene is incredibly well developed and very even, and it's really great to be playing now. The competition is excellent, the tournaments are amazing, and we're finally getting to this point where esports is becoming legitimized, and I can't wait to see what happens.
All right.
Whoa,
so,
that's a buzzer.
Holy shit.
well, you know, he kept going. Yeah, I'm not going to let him steal extra points. He got 1 for repeating the same thing over and over again. All right, we're going to move to Nahaz. 30 seconds on the clock.
Real talk. I remember like it was yesterday, one of the first in-depth conversations I had with Toby, and it was a TI4, and it was about the fact that, hey, we got this $10 million prize pool. It's great. The game is better than it ever has been before, even though the meta was shit then. You know, can we get better? Can we get bigger? And Toby was the one who said, you know, I just don't know. I don't think so. baby, we're here and we're only getting better. This game, I look at the young people that play this game. I look at the players that I interact with. They're incredibly young people. They're incredibly smart. This game is only getting better, baby. Dota is here to stay.
I like it. I like it. You guys are you guys are like rah-rahing the Dota in general. I like that. All right, Durka.
It's such a fun. It's so good.
30
Okay,
seconds.
fuck you guys. Huskar's amazing. I've watched this hero from zero to hero. It's an absolutely gorgeous. Is this the best hero in the world? I started watching Forev on MVP Hot Six play it, and he was like the pioneer for me playing Huskar at a competitive level. He went for the Tranquils Halberd build. No one had seen it before with the armlet. Then we saw Zizz on complexity. The fucking guy on your team that you played with actually take it then from SCA to NAC, and after we saw it at TI5 qualifiers, then it switched to Europe. We started seeing Matoma Man Miracle play it. It's the epitome of a hero that has gone from being a pub stomping hero that nobody ever plays, kind of like Meepo, to being at the forefront of competitive play that is actually considered a high tier hero that people love to watch like I do. Fuck you all.
Listen, you got points. You actually got a lot of points on that because your masterful understanding of the history of Huskar play.
He's
British.
What do you mean? Is toffee spelled bad?
Fish and chips. I mean,
Oh my
would you like some chips with your fail fish? Get out of here.
So
sir.
unfortunately,
fuck's sake,
no
Nahaz.
such luck for Durka. He will be muted going forward. Durka, it was great having you. Mute. All right, Nahaz finishes at 40. So close. 4 points off of the lead, Professor.
Two
You
more
did
than my age.
what you could, but I'll tell you what, man. If Kyle hadn't mounted the stat attack against you early on for those bonus points, I think you might have pulled this one out. So kudos to Swindlezz for taking the win with 44. A mute for the Professor, and 1 minute on the clock for Swindle to really talk about anything that he feels so inclined.
Man. I guess I'll kind of go back off of what I just said, but specifically in regards to myself, I'm just so excited to play. I love my team. I love where I'm at in my life. I love where I live, and I just can't wait to win and collect all of the Fairweather fans, because it's just funny, because in this industry, when you win, you're more attractive. You've got you're stronger. You look better. You're a better player. You're probably better in bed just because you win. At least in the eyes of Twitch chat. And I can't wait to make all of you motherfuckers eat your shitty little fingers. Keep typing the memes. Keep tweeting at me. Send me some more DMs. Let me know just how bad I am. And remember, motherfuckers, I was playing a TI5 in 10 fucking months of Dota. 10 months.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute everybody because
I think he just owned.
That was a good minute.
Seems
That was a
good.
solid minute.
Seems good.
That was a solid minute. So congratulations to Swindlezz. He wins the Aegis tonight. Automatic invite. So you let me know when you want to come back on the show, because A, we'd love to have you with soapboxes like that, and B, well, you earned it. So you get the return. Guys, a big thank you again to our guest, Kyle Friedman at Swindlezz. You can find him over on Twitter, SWINDLEZZ, if you listen to the podcast. Our second guest, the Professor of Dota, Alan Bester at Nahaz Dota, NAHAZDOTA. And finally, last, Mr. Gareth Bateson at Durka Dota. That's
Operative word is last.
Last. Maybe next time would be better, but hey, let's show a little bit of love. It's like 3 a.m. for him. He stayed up very late so that he could be a part of the show. So we appreciate all you guys being on it. Glad to be back. So I want to give a big shout out to ProBuilt Systems, who actually built the computer that the show is being created on, specifically so Around the Pit could make a comeback. So a big thank you to you guys, as well as Razor and Aces, for supporting the show. My name is Toffees. You can find me at Toffees TV. I encourage you to give me the follow, because we got all kinds of programming coming up, everything from interviews to the continuation of Around the Pit to a new cooking show that we're working on. That's This Gamer's Kitchen, and is going to be designed to help us, those guys who struggle so hard to put good food together.
I could be down with that.
Have you seen my Twitter recently, Toffees? My Twitter has been all food.
So my goal is this. I want to create something where I'm going to start out with mine, and then I want to invite gamers to just kind of come on and teach other gamers how to make a simple recipe that can impress someone. And that'd be fun.
Wait. Say that again? A recipe? What do you mean?
We're cooking.
We're cooking.
Wait, I have a chef. Why would you cook with Durka?
So we'll do a special episode called This Gamer's
Chef
Kitchen where we
Josh.
just stare
Yo,
at your
Chef
chef.
Josh, come here. Chef Josh, come here, quick.
Oh my god, he's
Are you
bringing the
shitting?
chef.
Are you shitting me?
Yo.
Not only do you have a chef,
You want to cook with Durka?
Oh my
like,
god,
what up, son?
Oh, he looks like a good chef.
He
we
is.
fucking lost.
It's delicious.
It's delicious.
You don't want to work with this guy. Come on.
Can he cook Asian food though?
He can cook whatever the hell you want, man.
I like it. All right, guys. Again, thank you for
Oh,
watching. Thank
wait.
you for coming.
Final word, Toffees. I
Alright.
just want to say, Alan. A lot of people on Rate My Professor are saying you've got to be just softer on these students from Peru, man. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I love this one. He came into class, stubbed his toe, and yelled out loud, "Suka blat." So I don't know what
That's actually my favorite. That's actually my favorite.
like. You got to get your shit together, man. Otherwise, you might have to do this full time like us. And jeez,
Nobody wants that. All right, guys, you have a
No,
wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna cut to the out and end the show, but don't worry, we'll be back next Sunday. New guests, new show, more fun. Have a great day, and as always, Toffee's out.